Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in. We're going to have a little bit of a disjointed Facebook Live again this week because we're all over the place in different locations. The session really is starting to speed up with a lot of bills coming out. I say it's like the crack in the dam. I think we're about to start seeing a ton of bills. And that's a good thing because we're getting to that point where they need to start coming out or they're not going to make their transmittal deadline. So I'm going to give you an update real quick, and then Liv and Chelsea are going to jump on in a minute. We have our Young Farmers and Ranchers group in town, and they're just finishing up a meeting with some committee leaders, and I think you're going to have a special guest. So I'm going to quickly get through this, and then I will turn it over to them. So, like I said, there are quite a few bills coming out this week. It was pretty busy on the tax front as well as the agriculture front. So, just to start off with a couple tax bills, or a tax bill that we worked on this week. There are more than 100 bill draft titles out there, I think, for tax bills. So, of course, there's a potential for quite a few to come out, but one of the titles that did show up this week are the local option sales tax bills. Kind of started through the process. There's kind of a different variety of those, and the first one that came out was what they're calling a luxury local option sales tax. It's supposed to be levied on goods mostly targeted at tourists. The problem is there's a very short list of things that are specifically exempt from that. And so the problem for rural Montanans is that when we travel into cities and go, do our Christmas shopping in Billings or go on a parts run to Great Falls or whatever it might be, we're going to probably get caught up in that local option sales tax, which means rural people from Montana, not just tourists from out of state, are going to be paying that tax, and then those tax dollars get left in that city. So I see we have one person watching. If you are tuning in, please just leave a message, tell us where you're watching from, and as always, feel free to interject with questions here. So that local option sales tax bill was heard in House Tax. It had a variety of supporters from the Billings, Billings, Missoula, some of the other cities, the League of Cities and Towns, and then the opponents were groups like the Retail Association, Farm Bureau, representing the rural folks, and then also a number of others as well. So, hi Linda, thanks for watching. Trina's tuning in and said she's asking questions about the local option sales tax bill. She says, why can't a sales tax be specifically for out-of-state people? Well, that would be a tricky one to address. How do you really tell when someone's buying something where they're from? I don't think there's any bills that are really aimed at doing that this session, but it might be something that they'll look at. Rebecca's tuning in. She's watching from the Young Farmer and Rancher Calling on the Capital event. So Rebecca's been up in Helena this week also doing some reports and some stories that will be showing up in your legislative highlight newsletter. So be tuning in for those. Okay, so the local option sales tax bill, we oppose that, giving them one of the reasons that I just already told you. In people from rural Montana, when we travel, we end up somewhat being tourists in our own states, and we don't want to end up paying sales tax in another town and then leaving our own rural needs neglected. So that really seemed to resonate with the committee, and we'll be giving you updates as those bills either progress or die, and hopefully that one will be stopped in the House Tax Committee. There were also two bills that had to do with pipelines, and they changed the way that pipelines are cited, including requiring a pipeline to be completed within 7 years of its permit. So coincidentally, or as I said in our news article, not so coincidentally, the XL Keystone Pipeline permit will be 7 years old in March of this year. So these bills were specifically targeted at stopping that pipeline. They're Senate Bill 97 and House Bill 271. Very similar bills, just have a little bit different approach to making those changes. We opposed both of those bills as well. Our members are supportive of having infrastructure built to transport oil and other natural resources. Our members in the counties where the XL Keystone Pipeline or Trans-Canada Pipeline are scheduled to be built are looking forward to having this pipeline built for a few simple reasons. One, these are very... Sorry, my phone started ringing. These counties rely on mostly ag land property tax to fund their local governments and don't have a lot of other tax base. So with the pipeline coming through, that greatly expands their pipeline or their tax base, which will have a positive effect on the rural landowners' property taxes, making them go down. So they're looking forward to that expanded tax base. We're also looking forward to the increased commerce that we're going to see in our local communities, whether it's, people, the workers buying dinner in Terry, Montana, or, doing their shopping in Hinsdale. Those are going to be positive things for our rural communities. So we opposed both of those bills. Those were very, very long hearings. They actually were heard at the same time, or in the same committees, but they did one in Senate first and then one in the House next. And so it was about a four-hour ordeal for me that afternoon, but very good hearings. Committees asked good questions, and I think those are both gonna go down as well, but we'll provide you some updates there. And then, every session I get to get involved with some bison bills too, and this session is no different. There is one, I'm just checking my time here, because I got to get off by 10:15 because that's when the others are going to jump on. But this week there was also a bill that just seeks to clarify the definition of what a wild bison is. It's being carried by Representative Ken Holmland from Miles City. He's carrying it on behalf of MACO, specifically the county commissioners in Garfield County. What it will do is it just adds a small provision to the definition. So currently in law, the definition of a wild bison is a bison that has not been reduced to captivity and is not owned by a person. This just will change the definition to has not been reduced to captivity, is not owned by a person, and has not been subject to the per capita fee. Now really, anything that is, domestic bison currently are subject to the per capita fee. So if they're domestic, they are already subject. So this definition isn't a super large change, but it does help clarify and help people understand what it means for a bison to be owned by a person. The other good thing that this bill does is makes the definition uniform in the two pieces of code where it's relevant. Right now, the definitions are slightly different in livestock versus fish, wildlife, and parks, and this will make them the same in both. So we think that's a good improvement. Not a huge change, but a good improvement. So we supported that. We've been working on that a lot this week and may have some updates for you as it goes. Maybe some a little bit further tweaking to the language, but just to make it super clear, make it good for the farmers and ranchers of the state who are concerned about wild bison, but not change anything to hurt anybody else in any way. So, does anybody have any questions? There were also a number of other bills I worked on this week. One is a Department of Livestock bill that just updates some of their import rules or laws on what they do with animal biologics, animals, and animal semen. Just kind of updates that to modernize the code. There was some concern on that one that it would somehow restrict Yellowstone Park bison from coming into the state. I do not think that's the case. That is not the department's intention, and they're going to work on some amendments to put people's concerns at ease there. But really some good things coming out. Got to support some bills, got to oppose some bills this week, and there'll be a bunch more coming out next week. One more, looks like Trina had another question. What about the bills that are being introduced by Mike Phillips of Missoula? So I have seen the same Facebook memes that you probably are referring to, Trina. And the best way to look at that, none of those, accused bills have been introduced so far. If you're curious about any bills that any legislator is introducing, you can go to the website, which is just leg.mt.gov. Look up an individual legislator and then look at their bills. And you can see their bill draft requests and then also what has been introduced. And you can see, so check that out. And, sorry, I lost my train of thought because another thing popped up. You can check those out for any legislator, but also keep in mind that there are over 3,200 bill draft requests out there, and people can share them around. So just because one legislator has requested a bill doesn't mean that they are going to be the one to introduce it necessarily. They can give it to another legislator. And so until about the end of February, kind of the possibilities are endless because that's when the transmittal deadline is. But so it should be good. You'll be able to look those up. I'm gonna look them up too. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you for tuning in. Trina, looks like you're my only viewer right now. So I'm gonna sign off unless you have any other questions. And sorry I missed you last week as well. I had a meeting with Department of Revenue at the exact same time as the video. This 10 o'clock on Friday morning, I always seem to have meetings, and I have another appointment coming up here at 10:30, so I've got to run. But the meeting last week with Department of Revenue had to do with their new updated depreciation schedules. And what happened is during the last session, a bill was passed that allowed them to update their kind of their database that they use to get depreciation schedules from. And that has to do with your business equipment, Class 8 property that shows every year how much your equipment will depreciate and affects your taxation. So when they updated those, there was some issues with the new charts, I guess. Department actually realized it, has since issued a amendment to that rule that mostly fixes the problem for ag equipment, but still leaves heavy equipment, so like your Caterpillars, your your dozer, your backhoe, those types of things, with a few issues to be addressed. So I was meeting with them along with a large group of stakeholders that have that have equipment intensive businesses, as you would call us, and discussing those charts. So we'll be submitting comments on those on how we think they could be improved, and we'll update you on those. If any of you have paid your equipment taxes and have any comments, I'd sure like to hear them. So get in touch with me. The comments are due on Monday. I'm going to be writing them over the weekend. So reach out either on Facebook here or give me a call on my cell, and I will visit with you then. So thanks for tuning in, and I will look forward to visiting with you next week. I'm going to jump off so that the others can get on. All right, have a good day.